As you might have heard, Justin Herbert just signed a new 5-year contract, and in today's video I'm going to go in super precise detail down to the penny how this contract is laid out. I will compare it to Jalen Hurts' contract, Lamar Jackson's contract, and Patrick Mahomes' contract, and I will discuss how this will potentially affect Joe Burrows' future contract. Okay, so first, how is Justin Herbert's contract laid out? And I would say it is about what you would expect. Fairly simple answer, but I think it's fairly predictable. So it is a 5-year contract of $262.5 million.
Make a lot of money. Yeah, I do all right for myself.
The average salary is $52.5 million, which is $500,000 more per year than Lamar Jackson's, which was $1 million more per year than Jalen Hurts. So Jalen Hurts was $51 million per year, and now Justin Herbert is $52.5. So I guess that's what the Eagles save by acting fast. So first you're thinking, oh, it's a 5-year contract. Why does this last 7 years? Well, that's because he was already under contract for this year, and they had the 5th year option to use next year. So it's a 5-year extension on top of that. And that's also part of why over the next 2 years the cap hit is so low. So the first thing I'll look at is the cap hit. So this year it's $8.4 million, next year it's 19.3, and then it jumps way up to 37 and 46 and so on. So of course these are huge numbers. Are these good? Are these bad? Well, the total cap this year is $225 million. So $8 million out of that is great. So this year, next year, they'll be able to do absolutely anything they want, and the team should be absolutely loaded.
Oh, please, we're rich.
And then he has a dead cap hit of $137 million, and then it steadily goes down throughout the contract, and they could potentially get out of it in about 5 years for a $50 million dead cap hit. However, I mean, they won't, because he's a great quarterback, and you don't cut great quarterbacks who are 29 years old. So, that doesn't really matter in this situation unless he turns into Russell Wilson. And then next, how are they really structuring this contract? And they are absorbing the cap hit completely throughout the contract, and they're not adding money into the future, as you will see with other contracts such as Jalen Hurts later in this video. So what that means is they're taking the punishment now and not later. In comparison to Lamar Jackson's contract, it is much more team friendly. So Lamar Jackson's contract, the lowest cap hit is $22 million, and the highest is $74.6 million, which is insane, and there's no way he actually plays for that much. That's just not doable. But a large reason why it is much more team friendly is that they extended him early, so they get these 2 years of the rookie contract. And on the other hand, Lamar Jackson was already past all of his rookie contract. And then if I'm comparing it to Jalen Hurts, it's different, but I would say that they're equally team friendly. The teams just have completely different philosophies in what they're doing. So, as I said earlier, Justin Herbert and the Chargers, they're taking the whole cap hit. They're not pushing any money into the future. If you're looking at Jalen Hurts' contract, there's a lot of money that got pushed into the future when he's not playing. So looking at Jalen Hurts' contract, the cap hit for every single year is not that high. If you looked at Lamar Jackson's or Justin Herbert's, there are times when it's over $70 million per year. The highest that Jalen Hurts has is $54 million per year. So how did they do this and keep roughly the same average amount of money per year? And the answer is that they're going to take a cap hit for Jalen Hurts in 2029, 2030, 2031, and 2032, even though he won't be playing. It's a bit complicated, but it's how some teams spread out their money to use it to the most advantage, because in theory the cap will always go up. So if you push some money from today into the future, it will help because it will be a lesser percentage of the total cap. So that's something that the Eagles and the Saints especially do this a lot. And then if I compare it to Patrick Mahomes' contract, it's almost not fair, but I wanted to do it anyway because he's the best quarterback in the league, and he signed a very interesting contract. So if you don't remember, in 2020, long time ago I know, Patrick Mahomes signed a 10-year contract, which is also unheard of, and the average pay per year was $45 million, which has been far surpassed over the past 3 years. But if we're looking at it over the next 5 years, like starting today, looking forward, Mahomes' contract, I would say, looks pretty decent, pretty team-friendly every single year, especially since he's the best quarterback in the league and he just won the Super Bowl with terrible wide receivers. I mean, he did have Travis Kelce, probably the best tight end ever, but his wide receivers were terrible. And I don't even think that's up for debate. So now that you know how these contracts kind of break down and relate to each other, what does this really mean for a team's chances in winning the Super Bowl? Since 2011, the median cap hit of the quarterback to win the Super Bowl is about 11% or so. And the highest since 2000 is Peyton Manning with 18.8% of the total cap. So I made this little chart using the projected cap hit through 2029 and then each of these 4 quarterbacks cap hit per year. Now I made the projection using today's current cap and then I increased it by the projected increase of 19 million. What I saw said 18 to 20, so I did 19. I did that each year through 2029. And then I did 10% of the cap, which was the average for the Super Bowl winner, 15% of the cap, and then 18.8%, which would be the new record for highest paid quarterback on the winning team in a Super Bowl when compared to the cap. So as you see this year, the highest would be $42.26 million. None of these quarterbacks are above that, so they're all within, I guess, expectations of a quarterback that could win the Super Bowl this year. And Herbert, Lamar, and Hurts all have this year and potentially a few years where their cap hit is below 10% of the total cap, so their team has a ton of flexibility to do whatever they want. And you can really see this with the Chargers, who have great wide receivers and great players on defense, the Eagles, who had the best roster in the league last year and a good roster coming in this year, and then Lamar, they've spent up big, such as Odell, which I think was stupid, but they did spend big on a few free agents this year. And then on the other hand, Mahomes with $40 million, they didn't have nearly as much money to play with, so they're stuck with more bad wide receivers. Then you'll see in my highlighted sort of red peachish color are the times when these contracts, if not readjusted, would be above 18.8% of the total cap. So next year and in 2027, Mahomes' contract would be above this percentage threshold. Lamar's would be above it in 2026 and 2027, and Herbert's would be above it in 2027 and 2028. But one thing to note is that Herbert's in 2027 and Mahomes next year are both barely above 18.8%. However, the other years are well above this threshold, and the team will likely be pretty depleted, especially the Ravens in 2026 and 2027 if they don't do something about this. They have a $75 million cap hit in these years, which would represent about 26% of the cap, which blows the 18% number out of the water. So overall, I would say Herbert's contract is pretty team-friendly, on par with Jalen Hurts. Just the team has a bit of different strategy for how they use contracts and if they're willing to push money way off into the future or not. And the Chargers really have a good chance to go for it, try to win it all over the next 2 or 3 years. And then finally, how does this affect Joe Burrow's future contract? If you look at these other contracts that have been signed this year, they went up $1 million and then $500,000. So I would guess that Joe Burrow would make about $53.5 million per year, which would be a $1 million increase over Herbert. What I do know is there's no way he takes less than this $52.5 million and doesn't set another record. One thing to look at when it does come out is the exact structure, whether they push money into the future like the Eagles or not like the Chargers. Another thing to know is that it will be similarly structured to Herbert's deal, since he was also a first-round pick. So that will likely go through 2029 instead of 2028 like the Eagles and Jalen Hurts, since Jalen Hurts was just a second-round pick and they didn't have the fifth-year option. But if I had to guess, I'd say that Joe Burrow would probably have money pushed off into the future, since they have a really good potential win-now mode with players such as Jamar Chase, and others who need to be signed soon. So I figure they'll probably try to push as much money back as they can. So if you like the video, subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, and stick around for more videos. Bye.